Lamadang Gombo Jambe Yong Masha Lo Kongelo de Dimyen Yedra Namda Rapsalave Tinye Dunga Jin Zechre Dugra Levanze Konda Zebe Ramare Mentum Dunge Jezeve Rozoikon Puje Tarze Yin Lai Choje Yong Tensong Rudra Jadro Nyam Nyenon Leje Chadro Ronze Jin Mare Muzre Dungra Nyugu Chenye Junze Rajenam Dene Tajin Saje Tarze Yunden Uzo Jaze Tubuku Chunyi Jende Dalemes Jambe Yong Lai Ndu Zedene Cheche Chenra Usreje Dale de Momen Barab Srane Katan Denje Jonglo Topaye Loje Pobe Noa Zaldo Tope Chawa Nam Sreshin Savdan Jaje Kungawa Kundo Zambe Sratai Kune Chola Ingusha Tamke Doje Shakje Riksu Chon Jenje Metu Duje Ponjamba Serje Lumbo Idabra Jebe Kue Shakje Jebe Shabla Ingusha Jamyan Shanai Durje Jenreze Saye Nyembo Jeba Nambrasar Namke Nyembo Shambai Kundu Zon Nyeve Seshin Jela Ingu Cha Tsara Sheje Kala Chenrawi Chenkura Je Zebe Don Durje Len Lapo Yarwe Denbai Kune San Zebe Kaju Rinpo Jela Shaje Wu Tsarpkundu Sije Tanye Le Tamke Same Shage Yong Zonshin Shanchup Nyimpe Lamken Karma Pai Mishe De Jive Tsuge Du Naso Tan Zamne Yulka Kane Tambe Chö Singi Yuena Tambe Chö Singi Number 2 Tene Tomar Tene Chap Sudrove Semtan Shangchup Cho de Semjebe Semrimbochi Number 2 Saltamne Sero Nang.
Khenpo Rinpoche begins by asking all of you, the viewers, wherever you may be, which country you may be listening from, to begin by taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma and the Sangha, and then to generate the precious Bodhi mind.
Tatrin Kans Shueyin Sena Tene Uch Togme Zangpo Jasela Lene Sodome Sodoma Ba Shueyin Tela Yang Tene Tandan Lejetun Yongetun Jogetun Sam Le Ta Yongdun Chieb Kaptere
Dangpo ni kare songso
Dangpo te Chödrak Dang Tenzo Lejetun Segindo Atala
Le pe don sena mi gyul kan yeme
Lejetun Togme Zangpo
Now Khenpo Rinpoche explains a text authored by a Tibetan Buddhist master of old by the name Togme Zangpo. And the text is named the 37 Practices of a Bodhisattva. And it has 3 principal parts. There is the introductory part and so on, whereafter we find the text itself, meaning the segment of the text which deals with the topic that's explained in the text. And we're going through that segment of the text, the principal part of it, which sets forth the topic to be explained, namely the 37 practices of a bodhisattva. Now, in terms of what a bodhisattva does, that is to say, in the context of these 37 practices, the basis is that of the Bodhi mind. And in terms of the Bodhi mind, there are 3 phases or stages. There is the causal stage, which is about training so that the body mind can arise, so that the practitioner has developed, in terms of his mindset, the kind of mindset in connection with which the body mind can begin, as it were, the arising of it. And then there is the second of the 3 stages, which is about the various details of the body mind itself and the practitioner's application in terms of these details. And then there is the third stage, which is about advice in terms of how to train so that the body mind, once it has arisen, develops throughout the various stages of the path and arrives at its final stage, that of actualizing the body mind. And we've come to the fourth of the 37 practices, which is part of the causal perspective. What a practitioner does in terms of training himself, developing himself so that the body mind can arise. So it's about the preparatory phase, as it were, in terms of the body mind.
Semche rangu to Janju Sem Rinpoche Senkente Ta Tekwa Chimbe Donga Nika Lam Jitsawa Lam Sok Ravodre de Yore.
Now, Mahayana Buddhism has 2 branches, the Sutras and the Tantras. Now, in terms of the precious body mind being developed from within, it is the basis for both branches of Mahayana Buddhism, both the Sutra tradition and the Tantra tradition. It is, in fact, the very soul of, or the very source of, Mahayana Buddhism.
Ten Drave Shanchu Sem Rinpoche de rang ji tubar she pala tene lojong giramba sangende hachang ge chembu impatre.
Now, in terms of a preparatory phase, as to giving rise to and developing the body mind, there is a cycle of teachings called mind training. All of the hundreds, if not thousands, of methods within mind training, the common denominator is, or the purpose or aim of those many methods is, to make it possible for a practitioner to at all give rise to the body-mind, to at all develop the body-mind.
Pena lojong rembatela nenden jitnang matuwara tene drink kazange semche ge damba shodong rabu chaba yina ten ngone damba shoate yabu shirare samba sangore ji yabu re te yina ya semche ge damba te ne tugre besana kala khabu shirare.
Now, therefore, mind training, in terms of its many methods, is very, very important for a practitioner of Mahayana Buddhism. Because when properly trained, the practitioner will be able to truly begin the path of a bodhisattva, having generated the body-mind for the first time, properly and fully. And this is not about what the majority of people in today's world do, namely, to attend the ceremony or ritual, however one wants to phrase it, where a lama, a guru, gives the bodhisattva vows. Of course, it's not bad to attend. It points to that perhaps those who attend have a good intention, but good intention alone will not bring about the arising of the body-mind within. And having attended with good intentions will not make for the ability of those who attended to uphold the bodhisattva vows. So the trend in today's world appears to be quite often to attend and then not do much thereafter in terms of acquiring knowledge of the vows that one presumably committed to during the ceremony, and to put them into practice.
Pena bögi chuju ge lama mang chewa ge program chi yone songde peshe semche je deleb degdwa semche program chi yin yang semche shunken so ge ngela dos chen tang ye kirisen shugu me de tang che tang yin na peshe semche ge ngo da semche sing ge ora gayen shege ayo na samsum tende
Semche ki
semche se de kare yimba kanchi goguyo ba semche se de semte kante ji ge shola je ne lab goguyo ba samje chinge ayo na samsum tende kabra thengedu.
Now, in today's world, in the context of Tibetan Buddhism, whichever of the different schools of Tibetan Buddhism one considers, the same applies here. Of course, there are variations, but in general, the same applies. Namely, that whenever there is a program in a Buddhist center, in a Tibetan Buddhist center, the Lama who, or the instructor, if it's not a Lama, it may be a teacher of various perspectives of Tibetan Buddhism. However, when a Lama is present, there is usually, as part of the program, a ceremony where the Bodhisattva vows are granted by the Lama. So this is a very common thing in terms of programs throughout Buddhist centers in the world. Now, Khenpo Rinpoche would like to say he's not really trying to criticize anyone here, so please do not misunderstand. The reason he says what I'm about to translate is that he would like people to give more thought to the generating of the body mind so that it can arise. It's for the viewer's benefit. It's not for the purpose of criticizing everybody that he says the following, namely, the impression one is left with that is that in the majority of cases, in terms of the giving of the Bodhisattva vows to audiences throughout Buddhist centers, the impression one ends up with, he says, is the following, namely that the members of those audiences do not even have a good knowledge of what the body mind is about, let alone how to truly generate the body mind. In fact, one ends up with the impression, Khenpo Rinpoche says, that there isn't much knowledge at all in this regard, or in these two regards, namely what the body mind is and how to generate it. One simply attends the ceremony with the good intention, which is a good thing to do good type of idea. There isn't much beyond that in terms of understanding, which is unfortunate.
Tiyinde sempi namda jirung yugla jewar shepala thoma lojongge minga nyamne naya da hajang ke chimpi bat.
So, for the sake of being able to fully understand the body mind to begin with, and then acquiring knowledge of how to generate it, so that one, to the extent where one's practice of it is pure in all its perspectives, because that's the only way this process is going to be effective. For that to happen, one needs to start out doing mind training as a preparation for giving rise to the body mind in the context of these efforts of doing so, being pure in all perspectives, pure or effective, as it were. Because if one does something in a pure way, what one does will be effective. So one has to understand that pure carries the implication of being effective.
Teche yonde ta lojong ge menga the la he ge chu ge nang la tra hin de che re joje palden atishe ne ju be dajin jewa tang dajin nyamba tang dajin jewe menga
Nyampa dangpo rogore.
Jede. Ji yue bare, yung ta rao jeta, ngarang zo se shue de lo jong tuan ma sekin doa. Tuan ma chik bu ma re, atishan ju be, ndor na da yin, nyambe sem jewe table min rao mango sung yo re, jewe table min rao mango sung yo re.
So, in terms of Tibetan Buddhism and its various branches, the most well-known and widely used and perhaps the most common source of mind training is the lineage of mind training, which begins with the well-known Buddhist master of old, the noble Atisha. And he, in one of the many groups of methods in terms of mind training, mentioned two, or perhaps emphasized two methods in the context of one category of mind training called the 7 points of mind training. There one finds these two, namely training in terms of making for a shift in one's mindset so that one sees to the fullest extent that all sentient beings are equal, meaning there isn't one or a certain group of sentient beings to whom one attributes a higher value. With respect to this group, there are preferences and so on. All are regarded as equally important in terms of their welfare. And the second of the two is once this is seen to the fullest extent, the practitioner focuses upon exchanging his own good circumstances for the suffering of others, taking upon himself the suffering of others, as it were. So these 2 points are set forth in this specific category of methods, 7 methods called the 7 points of mind training. But again, you have to keep in mind that mind training, that cycle of teachings, isn't just about those 7 points. There are many, many more, hundreds, if not thousands. And with respect to the 2 just listed here, there are a number of sub-points. So it's not as if you have 7 points and that's it. Each of the points has sub-points. So in this way, you have many, many more methods than just the 7 principal ones listed.
Kene yonsu chakpa lojong ge damga chik te Sakya ve chumta ke sonje, Sakya ve chuju ke sonje, jetsun kunga nyingbu shunken tege, tene dengi tre mayar war, tre mayar war, jetsun jambe yang nam nyinsin chene, mayiwa dawa chukren le drup nombare, penna dengi dawa chuk. Dengi tre mayawa shudunge chapsan ji pep gona lamsan juksha tse lamsan tsul pe ne dengi li yogu yor tendes ne drup nong pare zundu tene xela la ina ya ta kanser go chu chungmo chik da zamba chik nima to kanyang mebe che ta zo gog marwa te ho tende chen chik drup ne tamatala jezun jambe yang shalung sum du zigne jezun jambe yang ge lojong shenpa yidar chi damga sengke de song che. Di yin ta di damga ki yupa chenpo ni seto yor. Atisha ne yupa damga, lama sashin ne yupa damga.
There is another set of mind training methods originating with the founder of the Sakya school of Tibetan Buddhism, the noble Togme Zangpo, who, for a period of 6 months, retired to a very secluded place in order to do a meditation retreat in connection with the Bodhisattva of wisdom, Manjushri. Now, his setup, as it were, in order to achieve the goal he had set out to achieve, namely to meet with Manjushri face to face, was the following. He lived exceedingly simple. He would only leave his meditation cushion, as it were, or the seat he used while seated in meditation, in order to relieve himself, go to the bathroom, as it were. Presumably there wasn't a bathroom of the kind we have here. It would mean leaving the meditation, the place of meditation, and go out in nature. And throughout this 6 months period, he would simply walk very fast or run out and then come back. He would be so quick that the warmth of his meditation cushion hadn't evaporated while he was out, so he would only take a minute or so. He made a point of that in order to not waste a split second even in terms of achieving the goal he had set out to achieve. And throughout this 6 months period, he meditated day and night without ever being distracted. So a 24-hour, or rather a 24/7 fully focused 6 months period, at the end of which he met with the Bodhisattva of wisdom, Manjushri, face to face, who gave him a set of mind training points, a set of 4, known as the methods by way of which the 4 principal types of attachments are overcome.
Tati nane minga thangpo de karasongarasana tsendela hina chopa men songar.
And the first of the 4 points tells the practitioner, or introduces the practitioner to the idea, the following idea, namely, if there is attachment to the affairs of this life, then you're not a practitioner of the Buddhist path. One could perhaps rephrase that and say, then your practice of the Buddhist path isn't authentic, isn't true Buddhist practice. Simply because it's accompanied by attachments to things in this life.
Di tsendela ma yimbi che tu ten metakpa sangende tsendi hemba kongwe tundu nganong so gambye de hajang ge chambode.
Therefore, contemplating and meditating on impermanence is very important, because that type of contemplation meditation acts as an antidote for this kind of attachment.
Chazang Junsin Tilatene Togme Zangpo Ta Sholoka Yiban Songari Yurin Drogbe Zashi Sosurtal Bebe Drupe Norze Shurdu Lu Jen Drunkang Namshi Drumbe Por Send Lu Dang Yasela Yins.
Therefore, Togme Zangpo, in terms of the 4th of the 37 practices, says, at death, the visiting consciousness leaves behind the body. This must be a typing error. I think it should rather be leaves the body behind. However, I'll start from the beginning. At death, the visiting consciousness leaves the body behind, like a guest leaving a guest house, leaving behind loved ones to whom one has long been close, leaving behind wealth gained through effort. Thus, to give up life's concerns is the practice of a bodhisattva.
Tinde penna tsik tamandege tsende lüdangse tsendege ndela hembe shimbat lüdang tumna ta shimbat chetsam chungsongwa tetsamche shanship sembe chöpala nyeru rotu buyare chet. Ta hembe yurde karresana tambo chodon zashela shimba. Nipate Norton Nonchola, Shambat, Sambate, Lula, Shambate, Hinyul, Sum Yorella, Hinyul Sumbateam, Keji Meta. Lo Gran Yindauch. Namkan Lot Debran Yindauch.
So it's about renouncing this life, which is not synonymous with dumping everything and then do something different that takes on the appearance of having left all concerns behind. It's about working on one's mindset in order to grasp the impermanent nature of everything. Because if attachment isn't counteracted, one can't really even start to approach the path of a bodhisattva and the practices of a bodhisattva. The conduct of a bodhisattva is beyond individuals who are very concerned with their loved ones. This doesn't mean that one shouldn't be concerned in terms of their welfare as to the principle of reincarnation, the fact that we take one rebirth and after the other and suffer greatly. So it's not about not being compassionate. It's rather about one's being concerned because of one's own attachment to loved ones. And the second thing mentioned is the text, is attachment to what one has gained in life, material gains, through one's efforts. Having a job, making money, purchasing a home, and so on and so forth. So it's attachment to those things that one has gained through one's own efforts throughout one's life. This kind of attachment, or attachment to these things as well, needs to be dealt with and counteracted. And then there is attachment to one's physical body, which is a major cause for attachment in terms of worldly individuals. So, point made in terms of renouncing or giving up concerns in terms of these things that one deals with throughout one's life. The physical body and one's attachment to it, loved ones and one's attachment to them, as well as attachment to material gains. How is this to be counteracted? Well, it's by way of seeing the fact that all of this is nothing, or each of the things that one focuses upon with attachment in any of these three categories, as well as all other categories. Whatever is focused upon with attachment, one should take a good look at in order to see that the thing in question is simply just a process of constant change. There isn't a lasting nature anywhere in the physical body, in one's loved ones, or with respect to one's loved ones, or with respect to material gains. So it's knowledge of impermanence that can remedy these attachments. And by way of using this remedy, one can then renounce, as it were, those concerns. One is able to give them up simply, and thus become a fit vessel for the conduct of a bodhisattva.
Perna tsik tangbo kabla yurin drogben zaxie sosur tar sunga de sung de ngara yurin bo ne ta je ne ro de phama yin ne dra pen pinche yin ne dra de ya ze lo sen ne ro de drobo dromo ta khari yin ya de je changma de la zewa ma je sewa ma re denzo 정말 뭔지 레지 펜베 돕게 제바들 줍송어지 인나양 된소라 신진 찾고 마시 송어지 다 신차든 대점비 매나 상마도 턴그리 야그리 되는 란로비 뒤라냐 동아리 요마데 메당파 임바데 고데 요르와 오 된다발 선 당구레 송아데.
So Togme Zangpo says in terms of one of these three objects of attachment, leaving behind loved ones to whom one has long been close. Well, this could be a reference to one's parents, who has been with one since one's conception, since one's birth. It can be a reference to siblings. It can be a reference to a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a spouse. People for whom one has love. Now, the advice isn't give up your sentiments of love and concern for those people. Not at all. Of course, those sentiments should remain, but they should not be based in attachment for them. The reason for one's love for them shouldn't be one's attachment to them. One needs to understand that one has karmic connections with all those people, and they are deserving of one's love and one's concern for them. However, it's whether the love and concern is coupled with attachment or not that makes the difference here. So the advice is don't be attached. It's not do not love these people. It's don't be attached to them. And a person capable of being concerned with the welfare of others, being capable of love for others without being attached to them, that makes for a much better situation for everyone in general. Because that person is able to get along with everyone. Mm-hmm. Because that person has love and concern for and concern for the welfare of all these people in the absence of attachments. So it makes for a very different mindset than the regular worldly mindset. Also, once separation is at the door for various reasons with respect to one or many loved ones, if one simply loves those people without having a worldly attachment to them, then one won't suffer when separation happens for whatever reason. Because one knows that this is the nature of reality. Separation will happen for various reasons. Once born, from that moment and throughout one's life, the connections one has with various individuals, whatever the connection may be, always comes to an end. There is no kind of permanent connection that lasts forever with any other sentient being. It simply has never happened, and it simply cannot happen. Now, if one truly contemplates these details, then one day it will become clear to one that this is the way things are, in a very clear manner. Of course, one grasps the idea of that separation will always be an issue intellectually. That's not very difficult. It's about a definitive knowledge, a crystal clear perception of the fact that one needs to get to in order to be able to remedy one's attachments to other people. Intellectually, this is very easy to understand. One only needs to say it once or perhaps explain a bit more. It's not beyond anyone to understand intellectually that separation is an issue, because none of us know about a case where two people, for example, have never been separated since the beginning of this world system till now. So the intellectual understanding is not a problem. This is not very difficult or a difficult thing to understand. The point Khenpo Rinpoche makes is that one needs to take it a step further to the point where the fact is experienced from within, and here it's the fact of separation, as was explained. Next, the author says, leaving behind wealth gained through effort. So wealth here is not just material gain. It includes material gain, such as a bank account with a lot of money, such as a home, etc., etc. The list is endless as to material gain, but here wealth in terms of good reputation and many other immaterial things. So one shall understand wealth here in the broader sense of the word.
Pena dentro yang po should luju yimbate changme ha gogre de yin di himbate ge zang dang ge ma de.
Now, again, intellectually, it isn't beyond anyone to understand that separation happens with respect to these various things at one point or another. Nothing lasts forever. Fame comes and goes. A full bank account comes and goes, etc., etc. This is so common that everyone can understand this, but But for as long as the practitioner doesn't have an experience within, which is an experience of this being crystal clear to the practitioner, for that long, attachment to all those things can't be remedied.
American President Trump chashada. Ko unen zamling gin goti to be michire, ko the yunden yore, Jose yore, Kanga yore de, President singing mean to the chicky, Lutang matubne, ko jagdun shena, etra mavin shena, etra come to jamna, etra casekale jagundukora.
We have a very good example in the present, that of the US President Trump. Now, the man has achieved a lot in his life, in terms of material gain, in terms of reputation, and so on and so forth. He has accumulated a lot through his own efforts. Now, he also has some good qualities. However, it appears that his attachment to his present station, that of the US, that of being the president of the US, is at a level where he is prepared to do anything in order to remain president. Lies, various schemes that contradict the general code of ethics in society and so on, he is prepared to do anything, it appears, in order to stay on. Why? The answer is his attachment to the station of being the president of the most powerful country in the world.
Simple lo chamutege korang the message chigle drugya tumre kanga chono yubchara.
And this attachment of his has ruined a lot, if not perhaps all, of what he has achieved in the past, because he is more and more seen by others in an unfavorable light, not as favorable as earlier. So he himself loses out, and the cause of it all he himself loses a lot of what he has previously gained, simply because of his own attachment to this position. So attachment is is a high-risk mindset. You risk to lose a lot because of your attachments.
테네 다
그런 식으로 말하는
그런 식으로 말해. 나랑서 상말해야 돼요. 오늘
So
전에
one shouldn't sort of see this in the light of Donald Trump and what's happening there presently. All of us are like that. We are perhaps not in the same kind of situation because we didn't gain that much. So it's not perhaps as evident to us, but we're all in that situation. Our attachments are our own ruin, as it were.
배나 코르바 토마 매번에 단닥그 하루도 나저 코르베 현반되게 첸되게 현반되게 코르바를 육대로
The fact that we've taken rebirth in worldly existences since time immemorial originates with or is caused by our attachments. That's why we take rebirth again and again and again. It even at times may seem difficult to see a way out of this.
대단한 신게 다 신차 제베 율로 개체슈에 때 랑그 륜들어와 나용 차용 썸는 아주 신작하센데.
There is attachment in various shapes and forms to the physical body. And here we're truly mired in attachments. There is concern for the health status, there is concern for the appearance of the body, and so on and so forth. The list is endless.
테네 대인데 륜데 딱신 제나 정kon은 신치레 송어데.
However, consider the following, Togme Zangpo said, namely that the body is much like a guest house.
대인데 니지 남시에근 좀 보되게 유게래 마도 정kon데 코르든 로사 가양 요 말해.
And the mind, the guest in that guest house, will one day leave that guest house.
단단데 라토메 정보 첸데 르토 땅토바데 장접선배 쥐바레 송어데. 공도 잠배 양게 첸들라 힘바여 찬송데 단낭배 쥐를 개바 있나인다 라마 있나인다 게시에 있나인다 프루쿠 있나인다 대가슴비 쥐마 있나인다 쥐바 마라다 송어데 타죠 누가 쥐바면 송
digging on la kan song go. Ja, da Togme Zangpo gi le tangore songare song de mato soma. So for the reasons that have been listed in brief, Togme Zangpo ends by saying, therefore give up these life's concerns. To do so is the practice of a bodhisattva. And in terms of giving up attachments, as taught by Manjushri to the Sakya master of old, in fact the very founder of the Sakya school, Manjushri had said that wherever there is attachment, you can't find a Buddhist practitioner. Meaning, even though you may profess to be a Buddhist practitioner, if you have attachments, you aren't a Buddhist practitioner, not an authentic one. So, Khenpo explains, whether you're a scholar, a lama, a geshe, a tulku, or just a regular person in the world. Wherever there are attachments in the mindsets of any of these people, you can't find an authentic Buddhist practitioner. Because it is simply not possible to practice the Buddhist path so that progress is made in terms of approaching enlightenment if attachments are attained.
So that is la jaselalin so deng nang ne tang abadi sare tongi pumar damba singit.
Yes, so this verse we just went through, its topic is that of cultivating knowledge of emptiness in order to remedy attachments. Now we've come to point number 5, which is training in terms of not associating with what is generally referred to as bad friends, meaning individuals who influence you so that you cannot properly practice the Buddhist path.
That's a sikavla kongdun drogna dusam penjurishin tusam gambe shawa nyamjurula sham nijeme pa yurshepe drongi puma yase lalins.
And this verse reads as follows: people you are with who increase the 3 poisons, who weaken the practices of listening, reflecting, meditating, who undermine loving kindness and compassion. To give up bad friends is the practice of a bodhisattva.
That the Junsin Sumke Nangova Junsin Tangpote Kangdon Drogna took some pejurishin song. That's Sunda Chikinyamdon Drone Drobochen Dronanda Karchenanda Rangi Juke Dasha Shedon Tumsum Shucheru Churun Rogundona, te Trogan Barre song Junsin Tangpote.
So, Togme Zangpo mentions 3 perspectives. He starts out with the first, saying or referring to people who increase the 3 poisons, meaning when you're with them, passion, aggression, ignorance and the like tend to surface. These are people you shouldn't socialize with simply. You shouldn't hang out with them because the result of doing so is your mind entertaining passion, aggression and ignorance, which is not very constructive in terms of what a bodhisattva is supposed to do.
Penna, tan the deck told embassing in the jig, Dredan, Dona, Tindel Sewa Mare, told embassing in the pay, Nimbo She Shinking, then it Chambo She Shinking, that Tindravajil Sewa, Japangamba, you are there. Penna Chung Tunkin Jigichala Song, Sonda. Ryan Chong de la 통고해지 차. 된 간samsam도 청래 현바차. 된 총봉도 차.
Here we're not talking about some sort of demonic people where it's obvious that they are evil, as it were. Not at all. It's about people who may have created the impression of being very kind, soft-spoken, and so on. Take the example of someone who likes to have a drink or two, and perhaps many, and who's gotten into that habit. That person may be a person whom other people find it's fun to socialize with, because this is an easygoing person who laughs easily, who talks a lot, whatever. And you may not at all be a person who's into alcohol particularly. It's never been your thing perhaps, but you start hanging out with this person who seems to be very nice. You enjoy this person's company, and sooner or later you will be impacted by this person to the extent where you think, oh, I'll just have a glass too, you know, just to keep him company, or however you may think in the situation. And then you slowly acquire the same habit and perhaps end up an alcoholic.
녀몽징 로인자 배나 나라오질 차잖아 녀몽고 풍고인데 람산데기 왕도 로시그리 땡땡 로이 녀가요.
It's the point made here, Khenpo Rinpoche explains, is that one should give thought to things. Here it's about relationships with other people. Because very often things are not what they seem to be. People are not what they seem to be. There is always a facade of sorts. And one needs to be careful and figure out things before one strikes up a relationship with someone. Because what applies to all of us is that all of us are more or less just a large heap of afflictive, obscuring states. Maybe some of these states haven't yet surfaced to a very great extent, but it takes so little. It may take just striking up the wrong kind of relationship because this person seems so nice, and then one is slowly persuaded to join the ways of that person. One actually just does it because one enjoys this person's company for various reasons. So it's very easy to trigger the surfacing of afflictive, obscuring states in anyone, all of us. We are just regular worldly people.
Pena jang doji changke yang ne yang do songyo. Chog ne pasenge te mapung na pe de chi sha sha wi na. Longba chig na la shinto chang du je den ken je ge. Longba ti na la sha tang so cha so yang du gra yin cha ro gre ma to. So cha so sa ye de pena shinto ton sa gi yor wa. Tene konju ge ka de du jin cha ro gre. Yogo de
Petin na che Togme Zangpo na chal sondo charan soyang tene ta tron de sha jing ge chal sondo ran de sha ji xie dong tum la so pel sho sho yo des be mang be gon ta pa ka lob na yo ting mo ne re de yo
Khenpo Rinpoche explains that in terms of where he grew up and where he had his Buddhist education, instructions as to practice of the Buddhist path and so on, that was Rinpoche Monastery, the seat in exile of the late Karmapa, the 16th Karmapa. So he grew up in that monastery and was guided by the late Karmapa, whom he tells us on numerous occasions gave the following advice. He said, imagine that there is a country where the fruit which grows throughout this land has a certain amount of poison in it. The result is that the birds and so on who feed off fruits, birds and other animals, as well as the people of this land who eat that fruit, will accumulate the poison in the fruit, in their bodies, to the extent where finally, if they were to bite someone, they would poison that someone. This is an example of how afflictive, obscuring states work in terms of regular worldly people like ourselves. We're all full of, as it were, we're all poisoned by all the afflictive, obscuring states within. And even though one perhaps right now isn't a person who is acting out on the basis of passion, aggression, or ignorance that much so that it's very visible to others, these mental poisons are there, and it may just take striking up a relationship with someone who is more in the grip of the mental poisons and who therefore in a very negative manner influence the people who associate with them, influence them so that quite quickly the people who stroke up a relationship with this sort of person start to act like them. They follow them. They follow their advice. They sort of build up the same mindset. And it doesn't take much for this to happen. That was the point His Holiness made, Khenpo Rinpoche says, in terms of that example. Everyone is a high-risk person in this regard. The second reason for avoiding people like this, Togme Zangpo says, is that they will weaken one's practices of listening, reflecting, and meditating. Simply because when one hangs out a lot with people like this, one becomes more and more distracted in the context of passion, aggression, and ignorance, which means that one will start to forget what one has studied. One will start to forget the teachings one has listened to, and instead become distracted by what this or these people say to one, because one has a liking for these people and therefore tend to listen a great deal to them and what they say, which diminishes what one has previously achieved in terms of listening, reflecting, and meditating.
Tan de rem je nyam yung na tene chepa nyam na tawa nyam songare pena chepa te duru rode tene tepa ne kowe tawa samba ne nyongwe tawa ndi par ne
tawa kan du sång det
pena nge tepa par tene tawe kwa chi yo de bate ya chepa te nyam te tepa te je ungudwa
Zangpo köpa de dogre
ja. Tene köpa te tuksam dan revi köpa chagro tene tepa ne intellectual ko kowe tawate nyam gre tene samba ne
o samba
nyongwa yula jewe tawate tene remji nyam gre tene gamba ne ndipe tawate gam singe den ndipe tondarwa
yeah
te nyam gre tene tacho chuma nyamne te jase shongju sempe chepa kadyu yang re tu mare song.
So socializing with people of this type, bad friends, makes for the following. Namely, to begin with, as one's mindset to a higher and higher degree becomes preoccupied with the three mental poisons rather than what one has learned through studies, contemplation, and meditation. That means that one has now embarked upon a path where one's conduct gradually deteriorates, because the greater the extent as to the presence of the three mental poisons within, the worse one's conduct gets. One behaves differently in ways that do not accord with the Buddhist path, because one has let oneself become influenced by these people. Secondly, in terms of the Buddhist worldview, there is also gradual deterioration. What one has intellectually understood by way of studying various topics set forth in the Buddhist scriptures, one's intellectual understanding decreases. One tends to forget what one previously had understood in terms of the Buddhist worldview because of the increasing presence of the three mental poisons in one's mind. That has happened because one socializes with the wrong people, simply. And that will have the effect of progress one may have made in terms of contemplation also deteriorating. Contemplation here perhaps being about a deeper understanding of the Buddhist view. That will also gradually be forgotten as the three mental poisons increase in strength in one's mind in consequence of following the lifestyle of bad friends, simply, which again has the consequence of gradually making what one has previously achieved in meditation deteriorate for the same reasons. And the end result is that the conduct of a bodhisattva, the true conduct of a bodhisattva, simply isn't happening anymore. There aren't even efforts authentic enough for that happen. Everything becomes overshadowed by the three mental poisons.
Computer yenanda, telephone yenanda, dinju sondu chi yori. Kon dinjo chi tata chen rodi kadu yena ko mena chi de ma de den cha yu budwa.
So some people may think, no, I wouldn't let myself be that influenced, and so on. Well, think about the following. In today's world of the net, where you have smartphones, iPads and whatnot, a lot of people spend a lot of time with these technical devices in order to follow this and that. There is never much of a sense of there being the thought, I have to be careful here, because if I follow this site and its regular updates and whatnot, or another site or many sites, I'll end up being influenced to the point where I don't know if that is a good thing. It's probably very rare to find a person who thinks like that before getting involved. It's just a habit now in today's world. Everyone is doing it, so I'm doing it too type of thing. Nobody gives much thought to the possible influences of these gadgets. So that's the example here now. The real thing that these examples point to is one's relationships and one's tendency to follow what bad friends suggest, as it were. It sort of just happens in the same way. It starts with striking up a relationship, becoming a friend, and then it just continues. And very often people don't sort of think before they get into the relationship.
Oh yeah, then somebody gabla sambada nije yang me rogre songdo.
And in the end, Togme Zangpo.
Yeah.
Togme Zangpo points out, as we saw, loving kindness and compassion that one had perhaps generated to some point will disappear simply. Loving kindness and compassion that one had generated to some extent is undermined. And the end result is that one isn't really a very nice person anymore.
Penna, chirtane, roa simchin, bamboo busin, kandeji in
Roa semchin kante?
roa simchin tamshe.
That's so?
Buddha which is chashanaya. Sangma la, rajin tella, Shambe sem da niji sem ge saben yue de ba. Yene zhongyin ji de cheon de den da ben asis de tenzo ge mesel mu ji zhe me do sai chou chong do tenzo yang zhongyen ba de ne yong ge yore ninje de shambe zao jie wu do.
Now, all sentient beings, even the tiniest insect, have within the seeds of loving kindness and compassion for others. But because of bad friends, because of associating with people who have this sort of negative impact in that they are negative people, the natural presence of loving kindness and compassion within is or becomes overshadowed by the three mental poisons, as these poisons grow in strength the more one associates with bad friends. A very telling example in today's world is members of ISIS, for example, where this is taken to the extreme. Now, members of this terror organization do not think anything of beheading another person. It appears that they even enjoy doing so. How come deterioration went that far in terms of the overshadowing of loving kindness and compassion within because of the three mental poisons? Because of the influence of others, bad friends.
Till then, Georgia, Panda Atisha, from Mezzo, Dramtung Song Yacht.
Alltså?
Togme
Zangpo?
Ni? Ngove ne jindu pungor shagos.
Kangi ne?
Ngove ne. Ne den goong gre se. Pen COVID-19 na desi chila ngan rogun rofog marwa. Otin na shin chen pongure somar.
Now, Dromtumpa, the main Tibetan disciple of Atisha, said the following in this context: bad friends are to be avoided the way one would avoid associating with individuals who have an infectious disease. So that's probably very easy to understand in today's world. There isn't probably anyone who wants to socialize with a group of individuals who have contracted COVID-19. One would at all cost avoid having contact with those people. This is to be the way, or this is how you should view relationships with bad friends. You should avoid them the way you today avoid having any contact with individuals who are sick with COVID-19.
Tachi ngaranso nangbe chula donang lep nyami chego gongkin jiana de sholo karere layang ser ke ji tongcha le sabe ke dandar songyo rang gi lu chu jarna da intellectual da je yushana yushabarwa.
Now, someone who has true interest in the Buddhist path would, in terms of the two verses, for example, that were explained today, understand that the value of the advice and instructions in these two verses far surpass the value of thousands of kgs of gold. Because there are no instructions more profound than these for a Buddhist practitioner, because these instructions will enable the Buddhist practitioner to make progress. So Khenpo requests all of you to consider this, saying that his sole intention in agreeing to doing this program is his hope of communicating to you the kind of instructions, the kind of advice which make progress on the path to enlightenment possible. Therefore, please take what is explained to heart. Please practice what is explained.
So that's
all for today.
So namde tamje zagbani tamna nyebe danam pamje chega naje balap chuwaye sigbe cholen do wai do war sho